Good evening and welcome to tonight's meeting of the Zoning Board of Adjustment. Good evening and welcome to tonight's meeting of the Zoning Board of Adjustment. Good evening and welcome to tonight's meeting of the Zoning Board of Adjustment. The Star Ledger, the newspapers of record, and notice has been posted on the bulletin board in the municipal building adjacent to the municipal clerk's office. Roll call.
Mr. Wiley.
Here.
Ms. Martin.
Here.
Mr. Pentavegana.
Here.
Ms. Scott is absent. Mr. Johnson.
Here.
Mr. McNeil.
Here.
Mr. Graves.
Here.
Ms. Ricketts.
Here.
And Mr. Champion.
Here. There being a quorum present, this meeting is now declared open. At this time, I'll entertain a motion for the approval of the meeting minutes from June the 26th, July the 10th, and July the 24th. May I have a motion and a second?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the minutes of June 26th, July 10th, and July 24th. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. Our first order of business this evening will be the adoption of the resolution for calendar number 3436 New York SMSA Limited Partnership DBA Verizon Wireless, located at 2400 Morris Avenue, and it's block 3911, lot 26, and it was for the construction of new antennas. Board members, you've all had a chance to read the resolution. At this time, are there any board members that would like to make changes, comment, or modifications to the resolution as it is written? Hearing none, may I have a motion and a second to adopt the resolution?
Mr. Chairman, I move that this board adopt the resolution as read and modified as accurately memorializing the previous findings of this board.
Second motion.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Wiley.
Yes.
Ms. Martins.
Yes.
Pentavegana.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Mr. McNeil.
Yes.
Ms. Ricketts.
Yes.
Mr. Champion.
Yes. Our first order of business
Mr.
this evening. Yes.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman. Just for the record, we don't have any communications.
Thank you, Mr. Mangusa. Our first order of business this evening will be calendar number 3437, Janetta Presley, located at 2271 Morrison Avenue, block 5107, lot 58. Applicant wishes to erect an 8-foot fence. Ms. Presley,
Yes.
you have any representation, or are you going to
It's just
present?
me.
Oh, it's just you? Okay.
Just if you come to the microphone over here,
Here? Okay.
does it matter? Good evening, I'm Rob Pansul, the board attorney. Can I just ask you to raise your hand and swear or affirm that the testimony you provide this evening is the truth and the whole truth?
Yes, it is.
For the record, just identify yourself and spell your name.
Janetta Presley. Janetta is spelled Janetta. Presley is Pressley.
And you are the owner and the applicant?
Yes, I
this
am.
evening For the subject property, correct?
Yes.
On the 221 Morrison Avenue.
2271 Morrison Avenue.
Okay. I marked for the record, so the board has the information as you submitted. It was your application, and I marked it A1, which included the survey, and then there were 3 photographs. So why don't you spend the time authenticating that information? Go over the photos with the board and explain to the board what it is you want to do and why. You need a variance because of the height of the fence. You understand that, correct?
Yes, I do. And the reason why I submitted the photos to the board is, as you guys can see by the photos, my property is on a slope. It starts the hill. So the reason that I would like to install an 8-foot fence around my property is just to align with my neighbor's fencing that's on the left-hand side. So I sent you photos of the front of my property, on the side of the property, and on the back of the property, just so you can see the reasoning as to why I would like to install an 8-foot fence. It's just to align with my neighbor's property, just to be, aligned with her fencing. And that's the only reason.
Is that your testimony so far?
Yes, so far, yes.
Okay. Are there any board members that would like to question Ms. Presley?
I have one question. The neighbor's fence, that's there currently?
Yes.
Question I have is, it's the fence, not the wall, right, that you want to go up?
Yes, it's the fence,
Not
yes.
the wall. The wall is a little higher on the property, correct?
Yeah, the wall is on my property, though. It's not on her property. So I would like the fencing to go up the 8 feet, just to align with her fencing that's on top of the retaining wall on my property.
So you have the retaining wall, but it looks like where her chain link fence ends, there's like a block wall with some columns and light, in that photo, in this photo.
Yes.
So where is the 8 foot? To the top of the fence or the top of this wall?
To the top of the fence. Yes, top of the fence.
Okay, the second question is the area between her fence or your neighbor's fence and your fence. Is there any concern of trash or garbage or potential fire hazard developing in that area?
Absolutely not. No, it's not.
Just
We're
so you
clean.
understand, when you have that situation with neighbors, someone's going to have to be responsible, and since you're here tonight seeking variance relief, we're going to note for the record that the expectation is that that area will be maintained, just in case it becomes an eyesore, or there's overgrowth, or, as Mr. McNeil pointed out, some issue that needs addressing. Between you and your neighbor, you're going to have to work that out.
Okay.
I was surprised to hear that you said that the wall is actually on your property, that you confirm?
Yeah, part of it is on my property,
Your
yes.
survey, I don't think shows that, or at least as I look at it.
It's just a teeny piece. It's not like a significant amount that's on my property.
Now, part of your obligation here required notice to the area property owners within 200 feet, including those neighbors. Have you had any conversations with either one of them about what you're looking to do?
Yes, I had conversations with my neighbor whose house is on the left, who we're discussing tonight, and she has absolutely no problems with it. She was the first person that I asked if it was okay.
And any other conversation? I guess in the back is what? Is that the cemetery area?
Yes, it is.
You're really looking to shield, I guess, for aesthetics?
Yes, I'm tired of the critters coming into my backyard,
Okay.
so,
And
yes.
what is that to the right that owns the wall, as it were, that we're talking about that's partly on your property? Who is that neighbor?
I don't know her name, but I sent the letter to her, and I have not heard any reservations about it, so I'm guessing
Well,
she's
she's
okay.
not going to care because her wall's higher than your fence and on your property, so she's got it good.
Yeah.
All right, I don't have any other questions, or, Mr. Chairman, I don't know if anybody in the audience is here for the fence. Looks like we have a lot of
Mr.
people
Chairman, I have a
here
quick question.
concerned about this
Mr.
fence tonight.
Benavente?
One question. Do you plan on putting a gate on that side?
Yes,
Okay, you do understand that the gate cannot go farther than the front of your house?
yes, I understand that,
Okay.
understand that.
Just you realize, too, the obligation to get permits, if the board grants approval tonight, to work cooperatively with Mr. Manguso's office in the building department, correct?
Yes, I will,
Okay.
yes.
Are there any other board members with questions? Hearing none, are there any members of the public that would like to question Ms. Presley or make a comment on this application? Hearing none, I believe we can conference this. You can be seated.
Okay.
I believe we can conference this. Mr. Wiley, would you like to begin?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I don't have a problem with this application. I think it's a good clean application, but I'm going to go yes.
Ms. Ricketts?
Thank you, Ms. Presley, for coming and presenting tonight, as well as showing us these pictures to give us a visual of what you're trying to do. I don't see a problem with it either. You want to keep critters out, you want the sense of that privacy, I think that's great. So I'm going to vote yes as well.
Mr. McNeil?
I would agree that clean application, for privacy and aesthetics, I don't see any negative impacts. I'll plan on voting yes.
Mr. Benavente?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I think it's a good application. I think that actually the fence will dress it up a little bit. No negative impacts, so I'll vote yes tonight.
Mr. Johnson.
I concur with my colleagues, and also it's a unique situation with the neighbor being that much higher than your property, so I will also be voting yes.
Mr. Graves.
I'm supportive of the application. I see no negative impact on the community.
Ms. Martins.
I agree with my colleague. Very straightforward, clean application. I will be voting yes.
As for myself, the variance requested will not have any negative impact on the property or the neighbors, so I too will vote yes for this application. At this time, may I have a motion to grant the application and a second?
Mr. Chairman, I move that the board grant the variance applicable to this application, and that council is directed to prepare a resolution consistent with the board's decision.
Roll call, Mr. Manguso.
Mr. Wiley?
Yes.
Ms. Martins?
Yes.
Mr. Bentavegana?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. McNeil?
Yes.
Mr. Graves?
Yes.
And Mr. Champy?
Yes. You're welcome.
On September 11th, the board will pass the resolution memorializing the decision tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our second order of business this evening is calendar number 3431, Ukrainian Evangelical Assemblies of God, DBA, Living World Church, located at 2208 Stanley Terrace, Block 5504, Lots 17, 18, and 22.01. Applicant wishes overnight truck parking, which is not permitted use in the CI zone, and it was carried from a previous meeting. Mr. Hale, would you like to begin?
Yes, good evening, Mr. Chairman and board members and our constituents. And thank you so much for coming out on a summer evening. It's great to see you, a quorum here. And again, appreciate your efforts. Yeah, and I'll just briefly give a little background. We were here actually, believe it or not, in April, and Pastor Nick gave an overview of what's proposed. And what we're looking to do is to have a small storage yard associated in conjunction, when I say in conjunction with the church, to provide some benefit, and Pastor Nick will touch on this again, to the church and the work that they do in the community, including the food bank and outreach and the like. And again, Pastor Nick and our professionals will address this in more detail. Again, the property is located off of Stanley Terrace. It's adjacent to Route 78, and it is in the CI zone. And I want to touch on, and by the way, we appreciate when we were here last, and I know Mr. Johnson had some comments and questions. After the last hearing, I sent a pretty detailed letter, and I'm going to highlight some of those items, to the board outlining conditions that we would agree to. But let me first touch on the zone. We are in the CI zone. This is a heavy industrial zone. So if you look at Section 170, don't want to sound too much like a lawyer, but Section 170-902, it talks about the CI zone, and it specifically says, and I outlined this in my letter, the purpose of this article is to permit large lots and buildings for the operation of industrial, office, warehousing, distribution, manufacturing, and similar businesses that generate considerable vehicle traffic, require large indoor spaces, and/or produce otherwise undesirable externalities. So this is the zone that we're in. It anticipates traffic and impact, and that's why it's situated in this area, the industrial section of Union, adjacent to Route 78. Now, when you also look at the zone, and you look at what's permitted in this zone, what's permitted, and I'll just highlight some of them, but manufacturing, research laboratories, warehouse and distribution, car services, indoor and outdoor recreation, fitness center, places of assembly, which obviously is right up the street, public garages, self-storage facilities, outdoor storage, and other commercial uses. So, and what's noted as part of that, I noted that one of the permitted uses in the CI zone is outdoor storage. And outdoor storage, and it's a bit intriguing that the ordinance, and I'll touch on it in a sec, Outdoor storage says the storage of goods, materials, or inventory outside of any building or structure. This includes, but is not limited to, contractors' storage yards, junk yards. So the ordinance anticipates that this is, first of all, high traffic, and anticipates that among the permitted uses is a contractor's storage yard and a junk yard. And when you look, and then you look at the ordinance, and it says what type of use, but then it does have a provision that says no overnight truck parking shall not be permitted. The only variance that we are seeking in connection with this is the overnight truck parking. So certainly traffic associated with the application impacts are certainly anticipated in this zone. Now, when we were here at the last hearing, again, the board was great and told us and had some conditions. And by the way, we've read the Collier's letter. Our engineer will touch on that. We have no problem complying with any of those concerns or conditions. The police department had no comments, and there were just a few comments from the fire department, which is keeping aisles clear, and if a gate is being installed, have a Knox box. No problem with that. But let me touch on the conditions that we agreed to and we'll reconfirm those in the letter that I sent to the board. And again, it was very helpful when we were here last time that the board expressed some of their concerns. So the first thing is that we're limiting, originally our application was for 30 trucks. We've agreed to cut that in half, and it's only, 60, it's only 30. Hours of operation, even though it's not required in the ordinance, we agreed to no weekends and 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. If this was a junkyard, a contractor's yard, a distribution center, that could be 24/7. 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. So you got a junkyard, and they're bringing in junk cars and things like that. And now, certainly the church is looking to limit the hours because they're active on the weekends. They wouldn't want that impact, and a lot of the people here and the people in the area are supporters of the church and don't want that impact 24/7. They've also indicated that 80% of the trucks will be leaving between the hours of 7 a.m. and 10 p.m. and return at the end of the day. So again, unlike a contractor's yard, they're not coming and going all day, or a distribution center coming and going all day. The trucks generally are going to be working out of the port, and again, not coming and going all day. There was a question, and I think Mr. Johnson asked this, are we going to ensure that there's no hazardous materials? Yes, no hazardous materials. That'll be posted and confirmed. There was a concern, is there going to be repair work done there? We're stipulating no repair work. Again, if this was a contractor's yard, certainly they'd be working on vehicles with air hammers and guns and the like. And so there's no repairs works being done. If something needs to be done, it'll be taken off site. Also, we agreed that there would be a locked security gate, and any of these trucks will be behind it. Pastor Nick will talk about in the past this area. They did have some problems with people going back there. Now it'll be improved. And by the way, you'll see on the site plan, not only are we improving the site, but we're putting a significant buffer, landscape buffer adjacent to our neighbors, and also putting in drainage. None of that exists right now. There will be outdoor cameras for enhanced security. We've committed to that. These are all conditions that if you had a business that was coming in, again, a contractor's yard, a junkyard, they wouldn't need to. They're a permitted use. And we're going to touch on that. Again, we feel that the use is permitted. It's the overnight. So if for some reason we said, okay, we're not going to keep the trucks in there overnight, we could do exactly what we're doing, but just not keep the trucks there overnight. We feel that it's better of what we're proposing. Again, fire department recommended trucks be kept in clear rows for access. We're agreeable to that. There was a question that was raised about truck routes. Now you have a lot of industrial properties right there. You got Mulberry Metal Products across the street. If there's a dedicated truck route that the town wants to impose, we have no problem with that. We want to be a good neighbor with our neighbors and the town. And then we are looking for a small office work trailer. Again, 4 to 5 employees will be in there. So the point of my somewhat long-winded explanation is the use that we're seeking here, it's just, again, focusing on the overnight truck parking. But it's hard to imagine that you would have a distribution center, a junkyard, a contractor's yard, or other more intense uses that wouldn't have truck parking associated with it. And I would tend to think that if it was a contractor, a distribution facility, or a junkyard, that they would be, indicate to the town, oh yeah, we're not going to work on weekends, we're not going to work early. They would say, you know what, it's permitted in the ordinance, we're going to work 24/7. So again, I appreciate you listening to me and taking the time, but I think it was important to point out, and again, we were very appreciative to the board when Pastor Nick testified several months ago, that we got the feedback from the board. We did receive the comments from the fire department. Again, police had no objections. And again, we have no problem with Colliers. It's going to be a significant improvement to the property. The church has a great relationship with its neighbors, like I said, including working with Mulberry Metal Products, the food bank, and Pastor Nick will touch on this. The neighbors, they get along with them very well. They've had neighbors that have, let's say, they have a tree down their yard or a fence, that they're there to support them. So enough from me. I know it's longer than I normally talk, but I did want to touch on, I know it's been a while since we last appeared. So what I wanted to do this evening is first to recall Pastor Nick to again confirm the items that the church is committed to agree to and the importance of this facility to the church. And then we're going to call upon Joseph Steiger to take us through the engineering plans and address any traffic impacts. And then Nick Graviano, who I know you all know, who's here practically every week, to touch on as our professional planner. So,
Mr. Hale?
Yes.
What are the hours of operation, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m.?
correct,
Okay,
with no weekends.
you're right.
All right, so,
Just before we get started, Mr. Hale, it's Rob Pansul, the board attorney, and you're right, usually you don't speak that much, so I almost feel compelled to at least say something. That's what
they
I'm
didn't throw
hired
anything at
to
me
do.
yet.
But I will say, and your summary is accurate in terms of what we've done. Ms. Ricketts was the only member who wasn't here, but has and can certify that she did.
Oh,
review
thank
the
you.
tape. So
Appreciate that.
I don't want to see a revisiting, and we had some discussion that night about acknowledging the benefits of the pastor's operation in the church, and we don't need to redo that. I mean, certainly
Yeah.
recalling him and do what you will. I'm not going to tell you how to move your case.
Sure.
But the one thing, as the lawyer for the board, your summary hit on a lot of things that are accurate as to the code, but from a legal perspective and why they're here, there's no doubt that the overnight parking of trucks is not only not expressly permitted, but is expressly not permitted. So there's a D1 variance on the books. That's why they're here. I'm a little concerned with the lapse of time. I mean, let's see how this plays out, and we've adjourned through no fault of your own. I know it's been summer, and even now it's the last week of August. I'm glad we have the members here, but please proceed, and then we'll see how it goes, because I do have some concern with the way we jumped around, lapse of time, but maybe we can
Sure.
kind of try to tie all
Sure.
this together.
Thank you. And Mr. Painsul, I also noted that when we began the last hearing, you did in fact, I believe, mark the plans as A1 and the
Correct.
application as A2?
That was the other thing that I was going to raise. A1 is the app, and A2 is the 5-page.
Good.
site.
And I don't think there were any other exhibits at that time. All right. Thank you, Mr. Pansula. So, Mr. Chairman and board members, please, I'd like to recall, and briefly keeping in mind what Mr. Pansula said, you were either all here, or thank you, Ms. Ricketts, for listening to that. So,
Just for the record, Pastor Nick, you're still under oath.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here tonight. As mentioned, I'm going to keep it simple. You mentioned relationships, neighbors. Our biggest thing is keeping our relationship, helping everyone understand that this is a nonprofit organization doing their best to be a good steward of their property. We want to do the right thing. This property was a danger to our area prior to us taking it over. There was overrun, weeds, wild animals, kids, people going back there doing things you can only imagine in cars and stuff like that. It was just an overrun, unkept area. When we took over leadership in 2015 and took the baton from the church that had been there since 1973, we continued many things. We continued the food pantry that's still effective today, serving about 5,000 members, locally here in Union in the greater area, and building relationships with our neighbors. We are really trying to make sure we kept in mind. That's why we hired all these great gentlemen and the ladies that work with them behind it, because we want you to see that we're about building relationships. I grew up on Galloping Hill Road. I'm a Roseau Park. I've got family in Union, people that have been very near and dear to even you guys through the years that you may not even know in that way, but this is family. This is home. And, the goal of this is to take care of our property. There are many uses. The idea of going to professionals was to find out what we could do with our property, that we could do what was best. We certainly understand that there are many different uses, and we honestly just want the best. We want the best for our residents, for Union, and for the church, ultimately. We can only take care of that which we are responsible for, and so far we've done. We've begun to, just care for that and make sure that the weeds aren't overrunning and the trees, that even have fallen, towards people's houses. We have taken our own money from the church and paid for people's fences, paid for trees to be removed, and done things to make sure that we can continue to be a good steward. We have people, that serve in our first responders, in our church, on our board. We have over 400 residents that attend our church just from Union alone. Our average attendance on a Sunday is over 700. The impact is great, and an opportunity like this is no different than a business or anything else that's just trying to do the right thing with the responsibilities they have. Everything that we want to do from this is to continue to benefit both Living Word Church, the Ukrainian Evangelical Assemblies of God Church, right, and the community. Serving on the Interfaith Board here in the town, with everybody. We have the Jobs in Blue there every single Sunday, making sure that traffic, is safe. We are trying our best, to do absolutely everything we can to just help everyone understand that we really want the best. We want to do things right. We have a property that's not, obviously as a non-for-profit, we don't pay taxes, and we're hoping that even that can benefit the town, because that's something that obviously tenants would take on, the cost of paying those things. And so we are looking to make sure that in every way, everybody wins, and we do the right thing. Obviously, this was a public opportunity. The first time we were out here, not one resident came in opposition. We have a business owner who owns 2 buildings, as you can see on the drawings that you'll see in a few minutes. Those buildings are owned by somebody else, and they're on our property. And Dan, who's the owner, is a great guy. We've had multiple conversations. He has no objections to any of this. The neighbors who are, the roughly, please don't mark me on the exact number, but roughly 8 houses or 7 or 8 houses on that backside there, none of them came in opposition. And none of them have expressed it because we have a relationship. We're not just people trying to fly by night. We want to make sure that we impact the community and don't just talk about it, but do it. Thank you so much for your time
just
tonight.
a couple of quick.
Yeah.
One of the things I reviewed the bullet points that were in my May 9th, 2024 letter, which we generated and collaborated on after meeting with the board
Yes.
in the April meeting. Can you confirm that all of those conditions that you on behalf of the church would agree to?
100%.
Okay, and that includes limiting the number of trucks and the hours of operation, no weekends, the security, no repairs and the like?
100%, yes.
Agreeing to all of the terms and conditions, I think were very limited. There were no concerns from the police department, from fire department, having aisles clear and Knox box and the like?
We've even made those adjustments just as a testimony to our own property. We have an in-town firefighter on our board, and we have installed the Knox box and stuff like that. And so, yes, we're 100% willing to comply. I was very encouraged by the last time we were here because it gave us, how to be a good steward better. You asked as a collective for certain things, and I hope that we respected, what was being asked for and made the adjustments necessary to show that we want to work together on this project.
All right, and also, I know Mr. Steiger is here to talk about the plan, but as part of your plan, not only the fencing and the like, but adjacent to those residential neighbors, so on the one side is the commercial business, and then there's Route 78, but adjacent to your residential neighbors, you've agreed to install a significant landscape buffer?
Yes, we've actually done that, even most of it, by faith already. We're going to look to add to it. Arborvitaes grow, 4 foot wide, 8 to 15 feet tall. We installed them once again, please, I don't want to exaggerate a number, maybe a year and a half to 2 years ago, so that they would start growing once again. And that's honestly just because that was a comment that we did get. You know, it was like, hey, you know, these are overgrowing into our, you know, the weeds are overgrowing into our yards, and we have kids who, you know, are mischievous, and they climb the fence, and they do crazy things. Can you do something? And we've done that. We've cleaned it up. We've put arborvitaes there. We've even worked with the owners on their fencing, you know, and stuff like that to make sure that we can create a safe environment back there for their children to enjoy their space.
All right, and then we also did have an opportunity to review the Collier's letter, and again, I know Mr. Steigel will testify in more detail, but they indicated that there was some damage to the entrance driveway and requesting there be milling and paving. No problem with that. I know we've confirmed that.
In the milling in the, say that one more time?
The driveway to
Oh, yes.
resurface
Yeah, I mean,
that.
right now, if you watch Mulberry Metal, we have an outstanding relationship with them. We park there weeknights and Sundays. We have a great, you know, working relationship where, you know, we help each other, you know, and so the owner there and the ownership team there and I, you know, we're very close, and we share in that town, in that space, and they have trucks every day that come swinging in that same spot. And so we 100% understand what it looks like to have trucks be in that area because they're there every day.
Yeah. And then also as part of the plan, and again, Mr. Steiger will testify in more detail, that there's drainage that's proposed right now. I don't think there's any drainage or infrastructure there. You've agreed to provide the drainage that's been reviewed and endorsed by Collier's?
100%, yes.
Okay.
The basin, all of that is, and as I expressed, I think it's very fair, you know, that we will do all of this upon approval. We don't have the money to take a chance on building a basin, a retention basin of that size, just to hope we get approval. And so all of this, obviously, yes, you know, as soon as we understand that we have the opportunity to get a tenant, we would then pursue all of these things.
Okay. And I know Mr. Steiger, again, as a civil engineer and traffic engineer, we've indicated that we'll work with the township, police department, and the like for established truck routes and avoiding residential streets and the like, just like Mulberry, I'm sure, does now.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Okay.
All of the roads, Vauxhall, Stanley, and Burnett are all truck routes,
Yeah.
you know, as we currently know that to be. So, you know, it kind of once again, being in that zone, I think it really helps us, you know, being in a place that's already operating like that. So.
Great. Thank you. I have no further preliminary questions of Pastor Nick at this time.
Are there any board members that would like to question Pastor Nick?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Martins?
If you can just confirm, you guys park on Mulberry's lot?
Yeah, we do. So part of our Sunday, our church is now over this summer, this month, it was 640 average attendees. But when people come back from vacation, we anticipate it being even greater. And so throughout the years, as the church grew from 35 people to now 700, you know, back in February, we hit over 700 average people every Sunday. We work with them to just kind of partner. And so we park there and we take care of the lot, maintain it. We stripe it for them and stuff like that as just a friendly gesture, so to say, and that helps us have sufficient parking. And then we hired the Jobs in Blue from the town to be able to properly bring people and cross people. And so every single Sunday, if you stop by, you'll see, you know, for every service, we have 3 services at 8:30, 10, and 11:30. And, you know, the Jobs in Blue arrive, you know, right there at the beginning of our first service, and then they cross people so that it's safe. And, yeah.
Has the thought of ever converting this, where you guys want to house the overnight parking, for use for the church, for parking?
Sure, yeah, definitely. I think in our list of thoughts and ideas, there's a lot. I mean, we're also growing, and, you know, we're trying to see where we're going to, you know, as a people, be in a building and stuff like that. I know that sometimes plans don't make sense, but just to be fair, when I first got there, we actually got letters, if y'all remember, when they wanted to move, because PSE&G wasn't yet there, they wanted to move the sign, the big sign that you see from 78, the advertising board. They wanted to move that, and we were one of the identified spots to move that to. And so kind of from the beginning, we've just kind of tried to figure out what's the best back there. Like I said, we do have the other gentleman who owns 2 buildings that are kind of like basically next to PSE&G, and then after our, what we call like our youth center, our multipurpose center, in between our big back lot and that, he has 2 square buildings there. And so, yes, we're definitely considered it all, and, just kind of trusting the Lord as we've prayed about what the right strategy is. Our volunteers park back there now, and so that's kind of where we just kind of, on Sunday, we all pull in there, and including myself, just, walk up front. And so, yeah, we've definitely considered.
Are there any other board members that would like to question Pastor Nick?
I have a question, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Benavenga?
Hey, Pastor Nick, I had a chance to drive into the property. All the way in the back, I noticed there's landscapers, trailers, and dump trucks. What location are the trucks going to be parking in?
Yeah, so it'll be in that space. I mean, we're trying to get it ready and, and have them help us with trees, and, a lot of people in our church, is what you're looking at there.
Right, I know the property butts up to 78, I believe.
Yes. So as Joe will show you, he can definitely take care of that as far as there's an actual visual that you can see, the whole back strip there, which is parallel to 78, and then it has about 6 to 8 houses, I believe, on this side.
Okay.
And then PSE&G's over here. So you have 78, the residents, and then you have PSE&G here. And part of what we've proposed is keeping everything, let's call it PSE&G side, taking the driveway straight through, kind of keeping everything on that side and creating that buffer on the right side.
Now, will you also have those landscapers
No,
and,
no, all that'll be out of there. That's all
so
part
no one
of
else will be renting the property except the trucking?
I don't know if it's proper for me to
Well-
say, like, no one else is gonna be renting, but our primary intention is to have one tenant back there. And so I don't wanna put myself in a bad spot to
Okay,
say
I understand.
technicality, but, because they, some people, even as we've thought about showing it, if they, yeah, so I'm gonna leave it there. But yes, our intention is to rent it to one person inside of that use, that would bring additional revenue into the church, for the church's purposes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
With the limits that Mr. Hale summarized, with the 30 vehicles max.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Mr. McNeil?
Just to follow up on that, so right now, the property is currently being used in a non-conforming condition, storing landscaping vehicles back there overnight.
I don't know what you mean by non-conformed.
Well, we're here for a variance for overnight parking. And if there's vehicles parking there now overnight,
Uh-huh.
wouldn't that be a non-conforming condition?
I don't have any trucks that I park as far as the trucking.
Landscaping trucks that's back there now, equipment trailers that's back there now.
I'm sorry, I don't know. I'll refer to.
No, I
you.
just, the question
Are
is,
those trucks there doing the work that you're describing now, the clearing? They're not there paying
Yes.
rent and, I mean, you understand that it's not permissible because you don't have approval of this board
Correct.
to allow any type of construction activity or
We
vehicles
do
overnight
understand
parking.
that, yes.
That's
why
understood,
we,
correct?
yes, that's why
I mean,
we're
I
here,
guess
is to
the
get the
questions are
It's a good
reacting
question,
to what
yeah.
the board members have seen. I mean, they're reacting to what the site looks like today.
approval. Okay,
Yeah.
You realize that that's not permitted without approval of this board.
thank you.
thank you for pointing that out, Mr. McNeil.
So I have a question for you. Hi, Pastor Nick.
Hello.
What size are the trucks that's going to be parking back there?
So the trucks are commonly, what we're basically looking to do is to have a certain amount of trucks, come in, they go to the port, and most of them come back empty. And then part of the drawings show, at times where they can have trailers on them, and then the intention is to put them in spots that are appropriate for
Okay,
that.
but you don't have, let's say, a size 18-wheeler? You don't know those specific sizes of those trucks?
I personally don't know. I'm going to let the,
Joe, our traffic engineer, Joe Steiger, will touch on that.
But to be fair, once again, just kind of keeping to the heart of what I said, we just want to do what's right. If a truck doesn't fit in something, we're not going to put it there. I'll say that for the record. Like, we want to put what fits in the proper way it fits safely in rows, and make sure it does. And if at any point of the review, as we look at what we do, if trucks don't fit in that manner, then, we don't do it. I mean, that's.
And based on the last meeting, you said that there's going to be a dispatcher there, and the dispatch does not leave until all the trucks come in. Is that accurate?
The dispatcher will definitely be there. 3 to 5 employees are what any tenant who has prospectively come and looked at it has told me that they would have in there. The dispatcher is intended to be there to make sure that the trucks properly go where they come from. And so,
Right, because there was a question last meeting that was brought up in the event that, let's say, from 7 to 7, a trucker is stuck in traffic or could not make it by 7, how would they get in? And I believe you said that the dispatcher would be there to ensure that all trucks, and they don't leave until all the trucks are in. Is that still accurate?
I don't remember, just being honest, I don't remember as far as like when I mean, it would make sense to me to agree with what you said, that the person probably wouldn't leave until the last person came. I believe what I did also share in that was just kind of like the honest heart of stewardship, right? Like if we did see that they were not keeping to the times that we asked, that we would be a good steward to enforce that and to use that in our lease with them to say, hey, this is what you said you would do and you're not doing it, and we've now seen it multiple times, and then be able to take action that way. And so our intention is to stay within, what works best for the residents and for us as a church. We're active every night. Every night we are active in that church, so.
So will you be possibly putting in your lease, if a truck doesn't make it by 7 p.m., they have to find another means of someplace else to park, or they're not able to park on the street or something, to stipulate that in your lease in the event that they don't make it back in time?
I don't know if that's fair for me to do, but I understand the heart and the question. I would prefer as a tenant to be able to have the opportunity to be a good landlord in that way, and to ask them to adhere and kind of work it out in the lease where it would be clear that we could terminate, the lease if they did not adhere to that, as opposed to, have to specifically, do it that way. That's just my personal preference.
And I'm sure we can work out, and this is what you get when someone looks at a thing recently and
Yeah,
as
great.
opposed to several months ago. Thank you,
No, I
Ms.
appreciate
Riggets.
it. Thank you.
But yeah, I'm sure we can incorporate, just like we did the bullet point conditions, something in there that, the vehicles, I could picture, like I said, traffic, snowstorm, or the like, that someone gets delayed, but the hours of operation are stipulated, and that, except in, emergency, that they will not operate. But again, we would rather have it that if a truck was to get, let's say, a flat tire and come in at 7:30, that they'd be allowed to come into the site and park in there as opposed to parking on the street somewhere. But I don't think general operation, no problem with the 7 o'clock.
I think the only other thing that you had mentioned that also makes sense too, right, is that we're kind of putting this limit on ourselves by suggesting 7 p.m., but in the usage of other usages in that sense that would be similar, we wouldn't necessarily have to have them in by 7, and so that's why I prefer to maybe
Yeah, we can
together.
build conditions in that would address that.
Next question that I did have. Like you did say, your church is quite busy on the weekend, right?
Yep.
Will the truck area be completely fenced off to where people can't go back there, or kids, because when kids see trucks, they get happy and they want to go and play.
Yes.
Will that area be safe, and will it, be fenced off to where, let's say, outside members do not have access at all to that area?
Yes, ma'am. It'll be fenced off, the whole section will be fenced and locked, as even requested in the report, that we have the box there, so that if, God forbid, someone needs to get in, they can. It's also unique in the sense of the property is just kind of like a big L, like when you just come up and then this part of the property is up here, so like where the kids come in is at the bottommost point of it here, and the trucks would be like up here, and so, sorry, I keep doing that. So, yeah, that's not an area they go to, and if they did, they would have to travel, I think it would almost feel like a block and a half to, so to say, to get up the driveway, to go all the way back there, which, once again, would be fenced and locked.
Are there any other board members?
I didn't hear whether you said there was a limit on the number of trucks that's going to be back there. How many trucks?
So we agreed to lower it from, the first proposed idea was at 60. We agreed to lower it to 30, just as conversational between the back and forth between the board and our representation. And as I even explained further, the heart is to make sure that it's functional back there in regards to size. We're not just going to put 30 because we got approval for 30. Obviously, you would have to work.
Now, is it just a certain type of truck? I mean, is it trailers or
Yes, sir.
all trailers?
Yeah, so once again, not to limit the actual opportunity because we don't have the exact tenant, right? We can't, can't go ahead and you'll go ahead and do that.
For the overnight, would they be dropping the trailers off, or are they gonna park back there with the cabs as well?
Yeah, some of them would park with their cabs at times. Once again, keeping to the conditions we explained, no hazardous, no work, no, so some of them could pull in with trailers. And some of them will park empty because they will be leaving empty to go pick up something and then dropping that off at other places. And so, yes, some uses have us, with the, obviously, storing them overnight, and some have us just going in, and there's many different opportunities that we're seeking to do, but this overnight variances, the overnight parking variance for trucks is what we're seeking to get, if I said that right.
The cab and the trailer would be considered just one truck?
Yes, sir. And it would have to be parked appropriately, as per Ms. Ricketts' question. It would have to have a proper, fitting.
So Mr. Hale did say about 80% of the trucks would be coming in and out 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., right? What about the other 20?
No,
So
I
a lot
meant-
of times.
Yeah, let me just clarify, because I put it in the letter, that 80% of trucks leave at that 7 to 10 and return at the end of the day, as opposed to coming and going multiple times. That's what I meant.
Okay.
So that the 20% may have more than one trip, but 80% one trip, that's what I wanted to clarify. Sorry for interrupting this.
It's okay. Thank you for clarifying. Okay, so he clarified that question.
Great.
I'm sorry, guys. I'm
It's all
asking
right.
all these questions, right? Just want to make sure I completely understand. So I do know that there is a kind of like a park of some sort where they do have like a soccer league right across the street from your church, correct?
It's, just diagonal.
A little
just
diagonal.
north on Stanley. Of
Right.
us, maybe like a full property length northwest.
Right, and now a lot of the activities are going to be coming back simply because, school is starting and so on, so there's going to be more kids and so on. And during those times, the 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. So I know you did say that you may have your, the workers in blue there. Is there any other plans to just ensure, let's say, the safety in that area simply because there are going to be trucks, maybe coming in and out, some coming, some going, or so on and so forth? Are there any thoughts or plans in regards to that?
Yeah. If you don't mind, I'll refer that to Joe as he touches on the traffic, any of the traffic questions
Okay.
tonight. But I will just say, keep in mind Mulberry Metal and the other warehouses right there are already having that happen. So that if the town I guess that might be even a reverse question, right? Like if the town recognizes any concerns, that would be something that Mr. Stager could identify.
Thank you.
Any other board members with questions?
Yeah, I have one question. So based on what Mr. Wiley said, you said there'd be trucks with sleeper cabs and trailers. So would you say, is it possible that these truckers might sleep overnight back there?
No, sir. No, that's not the usage we're asking for. Is
So
people,
so for example, a truck's coming for delivery and he's not be able to make it till tomorrow. Is he able to park his truck back there and sleep there overnight till the morning?
That's not a usage that I've discussed with any of the possible prospective tenants at all. They've made it very clear that, they make their runs to the port, and any long run they have, it starts in the morning, when they leave, and then that's it. They go and come back later. So, yeah, no,
Are you
there's
willing
no.
to put that in your,
Oh, definitely would be willing to put, that we don't have people sleeping in truck. I don't want, even for the nature of what we do, I don't need men or
I mean,
women
I'm saying it's
sleeping back
possible,
there.
I mean, it happens, I mean, trucker overnight,
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think it goes, like I remember last time, one question that was asked in regards to the fire, like, what if there's a fire back there, and I think it's kind of a similar answer to, like, we want to make sure we do all the proper precaution things, because things could happen. I mean, things happen all over the place, but we want to make sure that, just like for fire, we have all the lanes that, in our contract, we put things like that would help them understand that we don't want people sleeping back there. The intention is that you have your truck to go get what you need and go from there.
I do have another question. So now with the truckers, right, when they come, they pick up the truck and leave, and they may come with their own vehicles. Are there
Yes.
parking for their own vehicles there?
Yes, so the intention that they've all explained consistently to me, any possible tenant, is that they basically replace, so their cars go in the same, areas that the truck was in, and then they go out from there.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Any other board questions?
I got a quick one. Pastor, you said you're gonna be the landlord and the affected people will be tenants. Is that gonna affect your tax exempt status at all?
Oh, for sure. I think the whole point in coming to you guys is that, look, I mean, we have people, you know, as you mentioned, we have people parking back. We have people in our congregation who are helping us take care of things back there. You know, they have different businesses, they have stuff. We want to do this right. Like, we're not trying to skirt around things, and if we're going to make a profit, that's not a non-for-profit in that sense, and we want to do the right thing, which means that we are understanding that we're going to receive a tax bill for that, that we would, you know, then be amenable to all those changes. But we think that when we look at the church, and even going back to your original question about maybe why not park back there, is that as a church, and I think you've seen a lot of churches close over the last few years since COVID. This church that we took over only had 35 people roughly, and I'm being generous, you know, when we took it over in 2015. You know, and so I think the whole point is that by being a good steward of your property, coming to the town and partnering and saying, hey, we all know there's people parking in places they shouldn't. We all know things are happening. Let's not, you know, try to catch each other in lies here. Let's be honest. We came because we want to do the right thing. We came because we'd like to rent out a portion of our property according to the proper laws and rules that union would have for us under the conditions that we've mentioned. And yes, 100%, we understand. We've even, you know, during the process, we've asked even the tax assessor during the time to just say, you know, what could that look like, so we can at least understand the cost of that, you know, tax back there, so that we can pass that number along in a possible contract to a prospective tenant, as we start to just understand if it's worth, you know, doing all this. I mean, as you could imagine, between the professionals here and the long road this has been, you know, this is not something that we just put together overnight. These drawings and these, you know, these cases take a lot of time to put together. I really, really hope that you all see that excellence and the honesty and the transparency of saying, hey, let's do this right. Let's do it together. Let's make sure it's a usage that's proper for the town and proper for the church, because there are a lot of things we can do back there as defined, as Mr. Hale so eloquently shared earlier.
Any other board members with questions? At this time, are there any members of the public that would like to question just the testimony that Pastor Nick has given? Not make a comment, just his testimony. Hearing none, Mr. Hale?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Pastor Nick. I'd now like to call upon Joseph Steiger, who will be testifying as a civil and traffic engineer. And by the way, on the civil end of things, I know Joe's been here many times, but Ed Deck, who had prepared the plans, unfortunately had a conflict this evening, and Joe was kind enough to cover both the civil engineering aspects and then also the traffic impact.
Good evening, Mr. Steiger. Can I ask you to swear or affirm that the testimony you provide this evening is the truth and the whole truth?
Yes, I do.
And for the record, state and spell your name with your affiliation.
Yes, Joseph Steiger, S-T-A-I-G-A-R.
And Mr. Steiger, I know over the years you've been before this board on many occasions. If you could briefly give the board your credentials.
Yes, Bachelor of Science, Master of Science degree, Civil Engineering, New Jersey Institute of Technology. Also been an adjunct professor in the Department of Civil Engineering at NJIT. I hold a engineer's license, professional license in the state of New Jersey as well as in other states, and a professional planner license here in New Jersey too.
Mr. Hale, the board will accept his credentials.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. All right, Mr. Steiger, obviously you're now well familiar with the site, with the application. So if you could take the board through the plans that were prepared by Mr. Deck, again acknowledging, and Mr. Pansola, obviously he's a recognized professional engineer and is well familiar with the plans, the Collier's letter and the like. So
Yeah, no problem with
you
that.
could
I
take,
mean, ultimately, if the plans get acted on, obviously Mr. Deck would be re-involved in working.
Sure. So if you could take us through the various plans, existing conditions, and then what's proposed by way of improvements, and then we can move on to the Collier's review letter and your comments on traffic.
So this is sheet 2 of 5. There's 5 sheets to the engineering plans. First sheet is the cover sheet that gives the zoning table and various zoning maps and tax maps. But this depicts the existing conditions.
And by the way, to interrupt, sorry again, this was, as I've indicated, the plans were marked as A1, right,
A2.
Robin? The plans are, was it
A2.
A1 was the app?
A1, the plans are A2.
Okay,
5 pages.
all right, good.
Yep, and this is sheet 2 of 5. Existing conditions, we have on the right side, since my pointer's there already, is Route 78. As you can see, we have Route 78 that we border. Primarily, the truck parking and the area is this rear area in the back. So again, just a depiction of the surrounding properties, Route 78, it's more or less to the south. We do have residential to the west of the site. To the north of the site is Stanley Terrace, and PSE&G substation to the east. The church sits up in front. Those other buildings that Pastor Nick was talking about, with the other tenants, are in the rear over there. This existing conditions of this site is that it is stoned, meaning that it's a gravel or gravel or stone paved area. And we're going to reuse that area, but make some improvements to that area, particularly, and I'll go to the next sheet to give you a better view of that. And I don't know how to get there. It's a separate PDF? Okay, so I got to get out of this one and go. Okay. Cover sheet, all right, lighting, all right, I'm going to take a guess that this is the layout sheet. No, that's a tax map. They're not identified exactly. Let me try this one. Okay, here we go. All right, so this is, this should be sheet 3. All right. This sheet 3, again, I can't, it's too small for me to see. Let me compare it to the sheet that I have. Oh, sheet 4, yeah. And I'm going to sheet 4 because that gives us the proposed site plan, but also shows some of the grading as well. As I said before, the existing pavement in the back, stone and gravel pavement, I call it, remains the same. And we're going to park, and we're depicting on this site 30 parking spaces along the north side and the south side of the lot. So Stanley Terrace is at the bottom of the page. This is a blow up of the improved area, and to the bottom of the page, nothing's going to change. The driveway is in this dark area here. There's going to be a gate and a fence that ties into the building and also wraps around the driveway as well to secure this area. So that you wouldn't have people just meandering back there. Trucks would come in, they would park in one of the parking spaces and on the site, and at night or leave the site in the morning. A big improvement to this site is this bioretention basin that we're showing on the, I'll call it the left side or east side of the site. And what that is, it's going to be a detention basin. It's going to have vegetation on it that purifies the water to a degree. Sediment drops out, and any pollutants that come off of this paved area go into that area, into that bioretention basin. It is designed to hold the 100-year storm without any overflow happening. So the 1, 2, 10-year storms, 50-year storm, and up to a 100-year storm is going to be completely contained within that detention basin, and water will then percolate into the ground in order for it to be discharged. It does have an emergency spillway that in the event there is a more than 100-year storm, which seems to happen every 2 years, as just facetiously saying that. But if there is a condition such as that, we do have an overflow for it, a protected overflow. Along the, I'll call it the west side of the site, we do have our residential neighbors. And we're proposing a staggered double row of arborvitae along that entire length. We do comply with the 25-foot buffer per your zoning, plus we're enhancing that buffer by providing this vegetative physical buffer as well. Arborvitaes are very effective in providing a buffer. They're evergreen, they're green all year long. They too have a growth rate of up to a foot per year, so it will enhance that area and protect those residents from any disturbance. As you heard from previous testimony, this is going to be a 7 to 7 at the most activity. By 7 p.m. it shuts down, the gates are locked for the most part, and then it's a quiet area until the next day. So in terms of having any disturbance to the neighbors, it'd be none to minimum at all. Now, I think the comparison here that Mr. Hale particularly brought out in the types of permitted uses that could go back there, you know, the industrial types of uses, manufacturing, car repair or auto repair, those would have no restrictions that we're imposing and would agree to as conditions by the board of limiting the amount of activity on the site. Those could be 24/7 activities. They could be 7 days a week. We're limited to that 12 hours per day, Monday through Friday only. So in terms of having and being a type of nuisance to the neighborhood, I don't believe that at all would create any issue. The one question about the amount of traffic and how it may affect particularly the playground and children playing and so forth. Again, we are in the zone that allows and actually stipulates that that this zone should have heavy trafficked uses, and those types of uses that are permitted would generate more intensive traffic flow, truck traffic particularly, being generated by the site, more so than what we're proposing with this application. The big factor here is the D variance is only related to the storage of those trucks at night, not the generation of the trucks themselves, because all those permitted uses obviously generate trucks. And in terms of the truck routes, we're more than willing to work with your engineer, with the police department, to impose any truck routes that we should be following as well. And again, I don't think we wouldn't be here imposing that condition upon this application as well if we were a permitted use as well. There would be more or less free range of truck movements on your township streets. I think at this time I'd just like to go through the Collier's
Yes, I was going to say, yeah.
Mr. Steyer, can I just ask a quick question?
Yep.
We've had a lot of legal here, and I don't want to run too far afoul for the board. If any of those permitted uses, manufacturing, industrial, anything that you or Mr. Hale described, offered to have overnight stored truck parking, they would be here for a D1 variance as
Yes.
well, correct?
Correct.
Okay, I just want to be clear on that. They're
Yeah.
permissive, but there's a distinction about why we're here, and there's no doubt about that.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. And,
Thank you.
and that was the point, and that's the reason why we're here, that overnight of truck parking. But if you take that aside and look at some of the permitted uses on this property, they potentially could have far more impact than our proposal in terms of generation of vehicles, noise, and operating that 24/7 period.
Yeah, and just further to clarify that, yeah, I do acknowledge that the ordinance does say overnight truck parking shall not be permitted, but it doesn't include equipment, which when we look at the definition of outdoor storage, it could be a contractor storage yard or a junk yard, so that there could be disabled, abandoned, or not,
No, I get it.
vehicles and the like. It's just the
There's a lot
truck
for the board
park.
to deliberate, that's why it's
Sure.
the first they're hearing some substance in terms of testimony. but I just want to make sure that we refocus of why we're here. It's
Yes.
still a D variance in the context, and, you know, your experts and yourself legally are offering reasons of why the board can overcome that burden, but it exists, and that's why we're here. I just want to be clear on that. It's not as simple, unfortunately, as you guys are making it.
I think the point what I was trying to make is that some questions from the board members as well as, well, what would the impacts be, with the introduction of truck traffic on this site? And the truck traffic on this site could be there legally if it wasn't that they were parked overnight. And really, that's the issue here. Trucks are going to be generated by permitted uses if this site were to be used for. We wouldn't be here tonight. It's only the incidence of what we're requesting with the truck parking at night. Go to the Colliers?
Yes, if you
letter?
could, please,
Okay.
yeah.
Good.
And by the way, we're referring to the Colliers letter. There was an original letter, but it's the updated letter of June 12th.
Yep.
Of
And
this year.
I'll go only to the points that Mr. Venezia had made Mr. Joe Venezia from Colliers had made, that he is either requesting or telling us we shall do certain things, and our response of how that can be included in the resolution as a condition of approval. And I'm going to jump to the first one, which is on the second page, comment 3.1, on-site improvements. And that was the milling and overlay repair of the driveway to the satisfaction of township engineer, which we will agree to. Number 3.2 is already answered, but I'll reiterate it, that the applicant, we're clarifying that number of truck parking spaces will be 30 maximum. So there may be less, but 30 would be the maximum number that would be parked there. Jumping to 4.2, where Mr. Venezia talks about the bioretention basin, that there should be a minimum separation. That's the last sentence on that comment. Minimum separation of 2 feet between the bottom of the basin and seasonal high water table. And we do have we have made that study since the letter, and we have a study that shows that there is greater than 2 feet separation. We're going to obviously submit that to your engineer and to the board as that proof. Jumping all the way on page 3 now, because nothing else really needs a response. To 6.2, just a correction, the latter number or 39, the last number, 39,560 is the right number.
Oh, just to interrupt, on 5.1, lighting will be shielded.
Oh,
and
yeah.
we did add the additional abrevieties.
Yeah, and there's a note now on the plan that talks about that shielding. So again, that'll be to the satisfaction of the township engineer. And the last sentence, I don't know how I'm reading it, because the tree buffer along the property line with the residential shall be supplemented with additional arborvitae. I don't know if he's asking for additional arborvitae or the fact that the existing tree buffer that's there is being supplemented by the arborvitae. We'll clarify with him on that. He's very, we work with him very well, and if he requires or requests additional arborvitae along that buffer, we'll certainly provide it.
And before you go to 6.2, again, 6.1, no problem in extending the fence behind
That's
the other
correct.
property.
Yep.
Okay, sorry.
Yep. And I think that's it. I think everything else, we're agreeing to everything on this report.
Okay. And I know we commented, police had no comments, and the fire department was, let me just pull that one up. Just, again, the Knox box on the gate entrance and clear aisles for access for emergency. And again, as a civil and traffic engineer, this has been reviewed, and are you confirming that there's adequate site circulation for
Yes.
police or fire and emergency?
Yes, that's absolutely correct, yes.
Okay, great. No further questions at this time, Mr. Steiger?
Any board members would like to question the testimony that Mr. Steiger has given this evening?
I just have one concerning Collier's technical comments on 6.2 in terms of the two different
Oh, numbers?
areas, where there's the lower 3.6 of 36,521 square foot, and where there's 39,560. Does the statement still hold true that that bioretention basin will hold a 100-year storm for either one of those values?
Well, if it holds it for the big one, it'll hold, the 39,000 will hold.
39,000.
Yeah.
That's the point.
It's-
Is it designed based on the 39,000 or the 36,000?
39,000. Yeah, so, and there was a note somewhere, I think, an error with the 36,000 number, but the drainage report includes the 39,000 number.
Any other board members with questions?
Yes.
Oh,
I'm sorry, I do have a question. Now, are there any environmental factors in regards to more trucks being back there, as well as, when it gets cold, you gotta warm up the truck? I believe that was asked at the last meeting as well, where, you gotta leave the truck running at some point in time or for a certain period of time. Are there any environmental factors there?
Well, the one environmental factor is that we're introducing motor vehicles, and you're always going to have some motor oil, maybe drippage and so forth. Reason for the bioretention basin is to be able to collect that runoff into the basin and then release it through the ground, through groundwater after it's filtered from the biomaterial, the vegetation on the bottom of that basin. In terms of there is a state law of anti-idling laws for trucks, and 3-minute maximum. So if there is anything above and beyond that, they're susceptible to being fined or the penalty of idling it longer. Does that answer your question?
Yes, somewhat.
Okay.
Hey, Mr. Steiger, I have a question.
Yep.
To Ms. Ricketts' point, will there be any refrigeration trucks? Because there is law that they have to stay overnight.
Oh, yes, yeah, and
I mean,
actually.
they have to keep going overnight.
Yeah, and actually, even for, if someone was sleeping in, as you see, a truck stops, you can idle your vehicle for warmth or for coolness on a day like today. We're not having people sleep in any trucks. So, yes, there are conditions or certain stipulation or certain opportunities where you can idle the trucks, but we don't meet any of those. Will there be refrigeration?
No, there'll be no,
Refrigeration, because they have to go through the night. I mean,
that would be
refrigeration has
another,
to go.
another condition would be no reefers, no refrigerated trucks.
And that might be a nuisance to the neighbors as well, and we don't want that.
Any other board members with questions for Mr. Steiger? Hearing none, are there any members of the public that would like to question the testimony that Mr. Steiger has given this evening? Hearing none, Mr. Hale?
Yes, I now like to call upon Nicholas Graviano, our professional planner. Thank you, Mr. Steiger.
Mr. Graviano, can I ask you to swear or affirm that the testimony you provide this evening is the truth and the whole truth?
I do.
For the record, just state and spell your name with your affiliation.
Yes, my first name is Nicholas with an H, last name Graviano, G-R-A-V as in Victor, I-A-N-O. I'm a planner and partner with Graviano and Gillis Architects and Planners with a business address of 101 Crawford's Corner Road in Holmdel, New Jersey.
Okay, and Mr. Graviano, I know you've been here, again, almost every week, but if you could briefly give the board and confirm your licenses and credentials.
I wish it was every week. It's been a little while. held a bachelor's degree from Rutgers University, a master's degree in city regional planning from Rutgers University, a law degree from the Temple University School of Law.
We'll accept Mr. Graviano.
Thank you, Chairman, always a pleasure.
You don't want to hear it again, Mr. Chairman?
No, the board will accept his credentials.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Graviano, obviously you've been involved in this project for quite some time. If you could please touch on the planning justifications for the variance relief being sought here this evening.
Certainly. As you heard in previous testimony, the applicant is before the board this evening requesting D variance relief for the overnight truck parking, as well as preliminary and final site plan approval related to a specific piece of property located at 2208 Stanley Terrace, that is known on the township tax maps as Block 5504, lots 17, 18, and 22.01. It's located within the township's commercial industrial, the CI zone. As you heard Mr. Steger in his testimony, the site is situated on Stanley Terrace between Ashwood and Wilbert, abutting Route 78. The site is a little over 2 acres and currently improved with a 2-story masonry building and a parking lot in the rear of Lot 22.1, adjacent to Route 78. That's where the applicant's activity that is before you this evening will occur. The applicant is requesting relief from Township Code Section 170-902, subsection D, subsection 2, and that overnight truck parking is not permitted in the district. I would like to note that the applicant does not agree fully with that variance relief, but in deference to and respect to the board professional's determination, the applicant will put on the proofs required for the D1 use variance. That position is taken in that the prohibition of the overnight truck parking is not related to the use section, but in the parking and loading in section, which is typically treated as a bulk variance. However, the applicant is requesting this D1 variance this evening. When we look at the purpose of the CI district, Mr. Hale touched on this in his intro. The purpose of the CI district is permit large lots and buildings for the operation of industrial, office, warehousing, distribution, manufacturing, and similar businesses that generate considerable vehicle traffic, require large indoor spaces, and/or produce otherwise undesirable externalities. The applicant has gone through great lengths to eliminate any undesirable externalities with this application by many of the conditions that have been set forth before you this evening. First, the applicant has limited the hours between 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. The applicant has limited it to 30 trucks on the site. The applicant has provided extensive landscaping and buffering on the site, even to the extent when you look at the vehicle stacking plan, the vehicle stacking has been located as far away from the residential uses as possible. So a lot of care and a lot of consideration has gone into the development of this plan. This is a zone which permits a wide range of uses, everything from manufacturing, research, public garages, outdoor storage, as well as other commercial uses. When you look at the 2021 master plan of the Township of Union, this is indicated on the land use map as a commercial and industrial property, as well as the master plan goes through great lengths on pages 73 and 74, describing the proposed land uses that are indicated in the zoning ordinance. Additionally, the master plan goes on to say, while uses generally do not serve the public, traffic to and from sites may take place during normal business hours or take place during non-traditional hours, particularly for loading and unloading activities. So the master plan does contemplate uses on these CI industrial sites that go beyond normal business hours. The applicant before you this evening has gone through great lengths to provide activities during normal business hours, although the master plan contemplates hours outside of those hours. So when looking at the positive criteria of the D1 use variance request, the applicant must demonstrate that the use could be granted in particular cases and for special reasons. That's the positive criteria of the use variance. Now, proof that a site is particularly suited for a proposed use does not require proof by the applicant that there are other viable locations for this use within the township. Just that this site has specific characteristics that makes the overnight parking of trucks appropriate. The applicant must also set forth the negative criteria that there is no substantial impairment of the zone plan, which is the master plan, or the zoning ordinance, which is the commercial industrial district. Looking at the particular suitability of the site, why is this site particularly suited for overnight truck parking? Firstly, it's a zone that allows truck parking. The prohibition in this zone limits the truck parking to certain hours a day. So this is a site that during different hours can accommodate truck parking. Secondly, the applicant has the ability to provide extensive buffering between the adjacent residential uses and the proposed truck and/or trailer parking on the site. And the proximity to Route 78 also helps minimize any potential nuisances from the parking of vehicles on that site. Looking at the advancement of the purposes of zoning of the municipal land use law, this use certainly sets forth promotion of purpose A, to promote the general health, safety, morals, and welfare of the community. And you heard Pastor Nick touch on some of those items. This site is now going to become a productive use on the tax rolls. It's going to provide essential funding to provide the church funding to carry on the essential services that it does, such as the food bank. So the funding from this rental of this industrial portion of the site will help continue critical church services. Additionally, the applicant is proposing a use that, aside for the overnight truck parking, conforms to all the requirements of the zoning ordinance. And you heard Mr. Steger indicate that the applicant is providing a stormwater management system which does not currently exist on the site today. It also advances purpose G to provide sufficient space and appropriate location for a variety of industrial uses to meet the needs of New Jersey citizens. And as I stated before, this use is permitted, just the parking of trucks in overnight hours is not permitted. So this is a site that can accommodate what the applicant is proposing during the day. Lastly, the applicant advances purpose I, desirable visual environment through creative development techniques and good civic design and arrangement. And that's done through the extensive landscaping provided adjacent to the neighbors, as well as the introduction of the stormwater management system to the site. Looking at the negative criteria, there really is not any negative impacts from the overnight truck parking on this site. When you look at it, the applicant has agreed to gate the site. There will be no access to the site after 7 p.m. So if a vehicle is parked on a site from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m., it's not moving, it's not generating noise, it's not generating traffic. What nuisances does that provide to the surrounding neighbors? It provides no nuisance because the vehicles aren't moving, they're not being utilized, there's no activity on the site. So I really do not see any substantial detriment to the surrounding community. I think when you do look at other permitted uses on the site, and Mr. Pansul was great on highlighting that we are here for the overnight parking, but I think what Mr. Steger was trying to portray to the board are that manufacturing uses can operate 24/7 on this site. There are other commercial uses that can operate that will generate more traffic and more activity than the site that the applicant proposes before you this evening, with the very considerate and detailed conditions that have been set forth and agreed to the board to try to take consideration of the board's concerns and the general public's concerns at large. When you have a use variance, you must show the ultimate burden of proof of why this is appropriate, given the omission of the overnight parking from the zone. And I think I touched on that earlier. Truck parking is permitted on this site under different hours of the day, and there's no nuisance activities that come from a closed site from parked vehicles with zero activity being conducted on the property. So in summary, the D variance can be granted because the site is particularly suited for the overnight truck parking, given the proximity to Route 78, given the fact that it's in the CI zone, which the master plan and the zoning ordinance has gone through great lengths to say that this is more appropriate for more intensive uses. The applicant is not proposing an intense use before you this evening. 30 trucks is a very minimal use for this site. It's minimized traffic in and out of this site. The purposes of zoning, A, G, and I have been advanced, and there's no substantial impairment to the zone plan or zoning ordinance with the granting of this variance.
Thank you, Mr. Graviano. Mr. Chairman, no further questions at this time.
Are there any board members that would like to question the testimony that Mr. Graviano has given? Hearing none, are there any members of the public that would like to question the testimony that the witness has provided? Hearing none. Mr. Pianzula, would you like to make any comments before I open it up to the public?
Well, Mr. Hale, do you have any other witnesses?
We have no further witnesses at this time.
Mr. Deck is not going to testify because Mr. Steiger filled his role.
Correct.
My only reaction, and I know this case is kicked around quite a bit, is to some of the legalese that we've discussed. I mentioned it, you've mentioned it, and the planner just did a good job pointing out some things. My concern with the way the case has jumped around since April is that I think I may want the time myself legally to offer some further analysis for the board based on some of the testimony tonight, not of which I'm going to need a lot of time to our next meeting, but I think it makes sense to have the opportunity for me to do it, and I'll obviously work in coordination with your office to have the board prepared. And then we have a lot of public here tonight. I assume, and Mr. Chairman, I would suggest that if anybody is here tonight in objection to the application, that they be identified for the record, since we are here and it is getting late. But if we make that announcement, if anyone tonight is here to offer a comment in objection to the application, if you could just identify yourself by a show of hand in the audience. We have a couple dozen, several dozen people here this evening. Is there anyone in the audience that plans to object or offer comments of concern? Okay, so basically this are members of the Township.
Maybe we could ask the reverse question, who's here in support?
Yeah. No, I didn't bring my earplugs. No, and I appreciate that, and I'm not trying to be difficult, but my concern is the lapse of time as much as anything. Since we did start this in April, we had a revision to the plan, we've had an amended Collier's report. I think in fairness to the board and myself, because I want to offer the additional input, to give them the opportunity maybe even to circle back at this site and see exactly some of the details that we saw in the site plan. I know they probably have all been out there now, but in context with Mr. Steiger and Mr. Graviano's testimony, and I think I want to offer a summary for them at the start of the next session. In particular, Mr. Graviano's point about where this particular limitation lies in the code, because
Sure.
I mean, legally that could have significance, and in my mind, and I made the point with Mr. Steiger, if it is an expressly prohibited use, it's a heightened D1 standard. If, as Mr. Graviano suggests, that it may be in a part of the code where that analysis, and I know you offered the proofs in spite of that, so I'll grant you that. But I want to be able to highlight that for the board because I think it's important. I think it's an important.
We have no objection. We've been working with the township, the board, and the board professionals and the staff here, so no objection to that.
I think our next meeting, we don't have a meeting next week due to the Labor Day holiday, but it is September 11th.
Yeah.
We do have, so,
I think
Mr. Chairman, that would, unless the
I'm
board
going to
has
be
any
here
other
anyway that night, so that's
reasons
fine.
I want to hear more from me or have the follow-up, as I suggest, might be relevant due to the lapse of time. That's my part of my concern. It's kind of unique the way this case went in, to no fault of the applicant, because we didn't have a quorum at the last meeting. You know, we're here tonight, now 4 months removed from our start.
Sure. I have no objection to that. The only thing I would request, just like it was very helpful at the last hearing, that we got some feedback, and I know Mr. Ricketts saw what went on. And again, credit you for listening to it and being fresh in your mind on some of the things that came up in April. But if there were any further comments or questions from the board that would be helpful for the applicant, and again, I don't think we need to necessarily open it to the public for comment. I think everyone here, and I just, again, ask everybody to raise their hands if they're in support of this application and what's going to go on here. So.
Right, and my intent, Mr. Hale, was not to shut down. Obviously, they have the right to speak. Since it's already 9 o'clock, and we, if you're accommodating to come back, we certainly will have the record. We're not going to close the record, so they will be able to add, and you as well will be able to revisit.
Yeah.
And it may prompt a question from the board to revisit your professionals in that regard.
Yeah.
I don't know if your professionals are available. I know it's accommodating. I know it is expense driven, as the pastor pointed out, but that's the reality of it.
Again, I'm going to be here that night, as is Mr. Graviano, and if we need to drag in Mr. Seiger or Mr. Deck, that wouldn't be a problem. Again, I would just ask if the board has any further feedback, as you did in April, or if there's any, just if we want to have the public, they came out tonight, if there's anyone that does want to speak, just give them the opportunity to say a few words. We don't want to belabor the proceedings this evening, but I guess first I would ask Mr. Pansula if there are any further comments from the board or items that we want. We've gotten some good suggestions on the no overnight sleeping, no refrigerated trucks and the like. I think, Mr. Johnson, you had a bunch of the questions from the other hearing that we hopefully have addressed. And obviously, bringing up the issue, and we did consider that if this project is approved or something else, that there's tax revenue, or there's going to be tax revenues or rental revenues generated that is taxable. So I would just ask if there were further things that you want us to.
It certainly is relevant, Mr. Chairman, to get the board's reaction. I mean, if they want to revisit the site.
Yeah.
One other clarification, Mr. Manguso referenced, and it's probably a good point. If there's anybody in the audience, we separated the objection part, but is anyone not affiliated with the congregation here tonight looking to support the application, be it a neighboring property owner or somebody within 200 feet?
Okay.
Or is it all congregation members?
Just asking, aside from congregation, any neighbors that want to come up and comment?
Is anyone in the audience who is a neighbor?
Yeah, well, do we want to hear?
Just, I'm curious, because I think it's, I don't want to shut down the public. They're here, it's late.
Sure.
Before the public speaks, I just want to talk to the board members. At this time, is there any other comments that you would like to make on this application tonight?
Or suggestions on changes or conditions that we can impose? I think we've heard quite a bit, and it's been a great dialogue.
Okay, hearing none, we're going to open it up to the public.
Ma'am, come on. Either one.
I wasn't expecting to speak, but good evening. My name is Michelle Hall Stapleton, and I'm district leader for District 5 here, where the church is located. I'm a member of the church. And so basically this is kind of new to me, and I just wanted to get some clarity on it, because I think...
Spell your name for the record, please.
I'm sorry.
State
I'm
your
sorry,
name and
just
address.
spell your name for the record.
Hall Stapleton, HALL-STAPLETON. Michelle is the first name.
Thank you.
District leader here for District 5.
Thank you.
1627 Porter Road. Hmm? 2 L's. Okay, and just so for clarity, and it's so that I could bring back to the residents in the area in District 5, I just wanted to make sure that I understood this clearly. So this location is allocated to have trucks. The question is that can they stay overnight? Is that the question? That's the concern of the board. And I just wanted to make sure when I take it back to the residents in the area that they understand this, because they may be concerned only because of the flow. But if it's already allowed to flow, then that wouldn't be the issue. It's just the parking that's the issue, is my concern, is the concern of the board. And I just wanted to make sure, I don't have a concern, but I don't speak for everybody in District 5. And so I don't see them having a problem, but like I said, I think that might be something that they may not be aware of. Like I said, I support my pastor, I support the town, and I just wanted to make sure that I also support those that I represent in District 5. And so you indicated that we were going to be coming back here?
On the 11th.
On the 11th?
September 11th.
Okay, so I'll just try to see if I can get some other folks and just let them know, and they shouldn't have an issue with it either, all right? I just thank you.
That's perfect.
Okay.
Yeah, that was my intent in raising it, so I'm
Thank you,
glad
Ms.
that
Stapleton.
You're welcome. I had to come up a little bit, I couldn't hear.
And again, anyone else that wants to speak, please.
Any other members of the
free.
public?
But the record will be open. You will be able to speak on the 11th once we return.
All right, at this time, board members, can I have a motion and a second to adjourn calendar number 3431 until September the 11th, 2024?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn calendar number 343 run to September 11th meeting for the Ukrainian Evangelical Assemblies of God.
Second motion.
Roll call.
Wiley? Yes. Martins?
Yes.
Better?
Yes.
Johnson?
Yes.
McNeil?
Yes.
Mr. Graves? Yes. And Mr. Champion?
Yes.
Thank you. Just want to confirm
I'm sorry, Ms. Ricketts?
Yes.
that it's being carried without the requirement of further notice, 7:30 PM in this room.
September the 11th.
Yep,
Right,
and we'll
so-
stipulate to
Right.
any appropriate extension of time. I know it's been going on, I think we've stipulated that in the past, but I want
No, and it's a
to
good
reaffirm
point,
that.
Mr. Hale, just so, because there are so many public here, will be no new notice going to your house or in the newspaper. This is the only notice. We will return here at 7:30 on September 11th in this room.
Well, thank you all again. See you on the 11th, and enjoy the holiday weekend. Appreciate you all coming out on a
Can I have a
semi-holiday
motion to
week.
adjourn?
Thank you.
Chair, there being no further business coming before the board this evening, I move we adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved.